There's a peculiar kind of suffering that happens when you sit down to do something important and find yourself, 2 hours later, deep into Netflix or rearranging your sock drawer, first by color, then by mood. You knew what you needed to do. You wanted to do it, and yet somehow you didn't. You scold yourself for laziness, but something doesn't quite fit. It doesn't feel lazy. It feels complicated. And strangely, it hurts more than not caring ever would. A truly lazy person doesn't lose sleep over what they're not doing. That's because procrastination isn't laziness. Laziness is apathy, a lack of care. Procrastination is emotional avoidance. We don't avoid tasks because they don't matter. We avoid them because they matter too much. They carry weight, risk, exposure, and the brain, sensing danger, presses pause. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We don't avoid tasks. We avoid feelings. Fear of failure. If I don't start, I can't fail. Fear of success. If I succeed, expectations will rise. Fear of judgment. If I stay invisible, I stay safe. Fear of change. Even discomfort is familiar. The unknown isn't. Fear of uncertainty. What if? All of these fears trip the same alarm system in the brain. Procrastination is like a smoke alarm, shrieking not because there's a fire, but because the toast burned. The alarm is real. The threat is misinterpreted. So the brain reroutes, doom scroll, make a snack, refresh email. Each detour offers a flicker of relief, and the nervous system learns discomfort avoided equals safety. Next time, the detour feels even more justified. This isn't a character flaw, it's a neurobiological tug of war. For decades, procrastination was painted as poor discipline or time management, but that never explained why the same student who can't start a dissertation can obsessively build a complex game mod all weekend, or why the would-be novelist who avoids page 1 will hyper-focus on a puzzle for 6 hours. It's the brain trying to protect you. The amygdala, your emotional smoke detector within your brain's limbic system, fires before you've had time to think. It doesn't distinguish between a rattlesnake in the grass and the possibility of public embarrassment. Its purpose is to keep you safe in the present. Either way, it screams, danger, avoid. Your more recently evolved prefrontal cortex, the rational planner, tries to whisper back, this matters. But, in moments of stress, the older, louder voice wins. Doom scrolling triumphs over deep work. What we call procrastination is in fact an emotion regulation strategy. You're not avoiding the task, you're avoiding how the task makes you feel. That's why productivity hacks often fail. If procrastination were laziness, the cure would be willpower, schedules, and grit. But it isn't. It's fear, and fear doesn't yield to logic. You can't reason someone out of a panic attack, and you can't discipline yourself out of an amygdala hijack. Psychologist Joseph Ferrari described a protective move called self-handicapping. If you only start the night before and the work turns out badly, well, you didn't have enough time. If it turns out brilliantly, you must be gifted. Either way, your ego is shielded from a fair test of your actual ability. And here's the thing, it works. In the short term, it absolutely works. You feel the anxiety rising. You switch tasks. The anxiety dissipates. Your brain stamps it. Problem solved. The cost comes later, because our ancient wiring prioritizes immediate relief over distant consequences. Time distorts. Here and now, you is shouty. Future, you only whispers. Doom scrolling in the here and now feels real. Tomorrow's panic is abstract. Economists call this temporal discounting. Emotionally, it's time blindness. Which is why, as the deadline closes in, something flips. Delay is no longer available. The emotional cost of avoidance spikes. Suddenly, the task feels doable, not because it's easier, but because panic has cornered you. That frantic, last-minute sprint isn't discipline or a sudden surge of inspiration. It's survival. And sadly, your brain tricks itself into thinking that pressure equals performance, which only reinforces the cycle. Perfectionism adds another layer, not the healthy drive to do good work, the paralyzing kind. The gap between the masterpiece in your head and the draft you'll actually produce feels unbearable, so you don't start. As long as you haven't begun, the perfect version still exists. The moment you do, you face reality. As broadcaster Ira Glass once explained, creative people often get started because they have excellent taste, but early on, their skill can't match it. They know what good looks like, but they can't yet make it. That gap is agony. For some, it's motivating. For others, it's paralyzing. And then comes shame. Not just anxiety about the task, but shame at yourself for avoiding it. You tell yourself you'll be different next time, and then you're not. The shame deepens, and soon, I procrastinate hardens into, I'm a procrastinator. It feels like identity rather than a behavior. Shame doesn't fix procrastination. It fuels it, because the more you feel bad about yourself, the heavier the task becomes. And when your self-worth is tangled with performance, the stakes skyrocket. Who wouldn't want to avoid that? The cruel trick is that most of this unfolds below your level of awareness. You don't feel scared, you feel blank, resistant, just not in the mood. Fear disguises itself as inertia. The task was never the true problem. What it represents is evaluation, judgment, confronting limits, and when your worth is tied to output, the brain will happily protect you from danger, even if that means keeping you stuck. So, what can shift the pattern? Not pep talks, not guilt. What helps is reframing your whole encounter with fear. Shrink the task until it's almost laughable. Not write the presentation. Just add a graph to slide 4. Ambiguity feeds avoidance. Specificity disarms it. Label the feeling. Not I'm lazy, but this is fear of failing, or this is dread of boredom. Naming it doesn't erase it, but visible fears lose power. And then praise the start, not the finish. Teach your nervous system that contact is safe. A streak counter isn't about progress. It reshapes identity. This is someone who shows up. Life is messy, however. Sometimes avoidance is wisdom in disguise. Maybe the draft needs time. The plan needs revision. The trick is knowing how to tell. After a small start, does the fog lift? If yes, it was fear. If no, maybe the plan itself is flawed. At its core, procrastination stings because it's about identity. Work isn't just output, it's a self-story. Starting means finding out what you really are. The brain, protective as ever, prefers to keep that story hypothetical. Safer not to test it. But here's the better story. Started, wasn't ready, fixed it, kept going. And if you need one last reframe, the universe isn't watching. Saturn doesn't care if your slideshow is late. The stars aren't judging your proposal, which means you're free. Free to start badly, free to wobble, free to make contact, not to prove your worth, but to shape your orbit. So maybe the question isn't, how do I stop procrastinating? Or how do I feel motivated? Maybe it's simpler and harder. Why haven't I started? What am I protecting myself from? And then, perhaps most importantly, what if I simply begin? Messy, imperfect, but real. The task will still be hard. The fear will still be there. But you'll know what you're actually dealing with, and you'll have learned that you can start before you're ready, before it feels right, before the fear has given you permission. That, strangely enough, is where everything changes. Hi, I'm Arthur from ThinkyBits. We hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new from it. If you'd like to support the channel to make new videos, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell notification. If you're interested in a proven microsystem to help you overcome procrastination, please click the link in the description for more information from our training partner. Until next time, stay curious.